The air on Zorath 9 was thick with the scent of sulfur and the faint hum of distant stars. The planet, a desolate wasteland of jagged rocks and swirling storms, was home to the galaxy's most feared predator, the Vorath. A creature of nightmares, the Vorath was a massive, serpentine beast with scales as hard as neutron stars and teeth that could pierce through the hull of a starship. Its roar alone was said to shatter the sanity of those who heard it. Few who encountered the Vorath lived to tell the tale. And yet, here she was, Kaela, a Zorathian scout, standing at the edge of a cavern, her heart pounding as she watched the Vorath emerge from the shadows. Its glowing red eyes locked onto her, and a low, guttural growl reverberated through the ground beneath her feet. She froze, her hand trembling on the hilt of her plasma blade. She had been trained for moments like this, but no amount of training could prepare her for the sheer terror of facing the Vorath. But then, something unexpected happened. A human stepped into the clearing. Kaela blinked, unsure if her eyes were deceiving her. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, and even rarer on Zorath 9. They were known for their curiosity and recklessness, but this was beyond reckless. The human, a tall, lean figure with messy brown hair and a confident smirk, was completely unarmed. No weapons, no armor, just a simple jumpsuit and a pair of boots. The Vorath turned its attention to the human, its massive head tilting as if confused by the audacity of this tiny creature. Kaela wanted to scream, to warn the human to run, but her voice caught in her throat. She could only watch in horrified fascination as the human took a step forward, completely unfazed by the predator before them. "Hey there, big guy," the human said, their voice calm and almost playful. "You look hungry. How about I fix that?" Kaela's mind raced. Was this human insane? Delusional? The Vorath didn't respond to words. It only understood hunger and destruction. But before she could process what was happening, the human reached into a small pouch on their belt and pulled out a piece of meat. The Vorath's nostrils flared, and its massive body coiled, ready to strike. Kaela braced herself for the inevitable bloodshed. But instead of attacking, the Vorath hesitated. Its glowing eyes narrowed, and it let out a low, rumbling growl that sounded almost curious. The human tossed the meat into the air, and the Vorath's head snapped forward, catching it in midair. The ground shook as the beast chewed, its massive jaws crunching through bone and sinew. Kaela's jaw dropped. She had never seen anything like this. The Vorath was supposed to be untamable, a force of nature that couldn't be reasoned with. And yet, here it was eating out of a human's hand like a domesticated pet. But the human wasn't done. "That's right," they said, pulling out another piece of meat. "You like that, don't you? Bet you've never tasted anything like it." Kaela's mind was reeling. What was happening? Who was this human and how were they doing this? She wanted to run, to get as far away from this madness as possible, but her feet were rooted to the spot. She couldn't look away. The human continued to feed the Vorath, each piece of meat earning a low, rumbling purr from the beast. It was almost affectionate. Kaela's fear began to ebb, replaced by a growing sense of disbelief. This couldn't be real. It had to be some kind of trick, an illusion. But no, the Vorath was right there, its massive body coiled around the human like a protective shield. And then the unthinkable happened. The human reached out and patted the Vorath on the snout. Kaela's breath caught in her throat. She expected the Vorath to snap, to tear the human limb from limb. But instead, the beast leaned into the touch, its glowing eyes half closed in contentment. Kaela's mind went blank. She had no words, no thoughts, only a deep primal shock that reverberated through her entire being. The human turned to her, their smirk widening. You okay over there? You look like you've seen a ghost. Kaela opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. She could only stare, her mind struggling to process what she had just witnessed. The human chuckled. Relax. He's not so bad once you get to know him. Just a big ol' softy. Kaela's eyes darted to the Vorath, which was now nuzzling the human's hand like an overgrown puppy. She felt a hysterical laugh bubbling up in her chest. This had to be a dream. There was no other explanation. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. And as the human continued to interact with the Vorath, Kaela's fear turned to something else entirely. Awe. This human, this seemingly ordinary creature, had done the impossible. They had tamed the galaxy's deadliest beast. And then, the human did something that shattered Kaela's understanding of reality. They took a bite out of the Vorath's tail. Kaela's scream echoed through the cavern as the Vorath let out a deafening roar. But it wasn't a roar of anger. It was a roar of pain. The human had actually bitten the beast, their teeth sinking into the thick, scaly flesh. Kaela's mind went blank. She couldn't comprehend what she was seeing. The human was eating the Vorath. The Vorath thrashed, its massive body writhing in agony, but the human held on, their teeth tearing through the beast's flesh with terrifying ease. Kaela's stomach churned as she watched the scene unfold. The human wasn't just eating the Vorath, they were devouring it piece by piece. The Vorath's roars grew weaker, its movements slower, until finally, it collapsed in a heap, its massive body lifeless. The humans stood over it, their mouths stained with blood, a look of satisfaction on their face. Kaela's legs gave out, and she collapsed to the ground, her mind reeling. She had just witnessed the impossible. A human had not only tamed the Vorath but had killed and eaten it. It was beyond comprehension. The human turned to her, their smirk still in place. You okay? You look a little pale. Kaela could only stare, her mind blank. She had no words, no thoughts, only a deep primal shock that reverberated through her entire being. The human shrugged and wiped the blood from their mouth. Guess I should have warned you. Humans have a unique appetite. Kaela's mind finally caught up with her, and she managed to stammer. What are you? The human's smirk widened. Just a guy with a taste for adventure. And apparently Vorath. Kaela's mind raced. This human was unlike anything she had ever encountered. They were fearless, unpredictable, and utterly incomprehensible. And yet they had saved her life. If the human hadn't intervened, she would have been the Vorath's next meal. But as she looked at the human, a new fear began to creep into her mind. If they could devour the galaxy's deadliest beast, what else were they capable of? The human seemed to sense her unease and gave her a reassuring smile. Don't worry. I'm not here to cause trouble. Just passing through. Kaela nodded, though her mind was still reeling. She had no idea what to make of this human, but one thing was certain. She would never forget this day. As the human walked away, leaving the lifeless body of the Vorath behind, Kaela couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, full of creatures that defied understanding. But none were as terrifying or as fascinating as the human. And as she watched them disappear into the horizon, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the